Wherever you are, Mama, let it ride.
Here we have the infamous granny squares. If you've been crocheting long, you've probably made these, and they tend to like pile up because people don't like sewing in ends, and they end up in bags, and then when you move you forget what you were going to make, or you lose the directions, and these things just kind of accumulate over the years. Actually, somebody gave me these because they didn't want to sew them together either. So I'm going to show you how to sew them together. Now usually granny squares like these were made for a baby blanket, I think, or people make them for Afghans. But there's all kinds of small projects you can make if you just got a few of them finished. You can make pillows, sachets, you know, all kinds of things out of granny squares, vests, hats. So that's kind of going to determine how you sew them together. Now the trick with weaving in ends is you have to do them as you go along. In other words, if you make 6 squares, weave in the ends. Otherwise you'll end up with 200 squares and they all have to be woven in, and you're going to hate yourself at that point. So just make it a habit, you know, the same day you make them, weave in the ends. So I'm going to sew these ends in. Now sometimes if the end is on the outside like this, you can use that to help join the squares if you need that color. In my case, I'm joining them with yellow, so it's not going to help me, so I need to get rid of it. Whenever you sew in ends, always give it a little stretching, which will settle the end. If you don't stretch it, the first time the thing is pulled, it's going to pop out again. Once you get the ends sewn in, figure out where you want each piece to go. In this case, I'm making a pillow top perhaps, and so I'm going to do 2 by 2. And it helps once you get the whole thing laid out, especially if it's a big thing like a bedspread, to take photographs of it with your camera and print it out on your computer, and that way you have a reference. If you don't have a computer, then you can always sketch it out on paper, but since you're watching me on the computer, I'm assuming you have one. Now to make this easier to follow, I'm going to use yellow yarn to sew these pieces together. I'm going to show you 2 methods. One is the sewing method, and you're going to need a yarn needle. The other is the crochet method, and you're going to need a crochet hook. Join your yarn in one of the corners. Now your granny square may look different, so count the number in the corner and find the center. In which case this one's easy to see. You can see a line that goes up that way. Now I used to tie it at the end. I don't do that anymore. Now I tie it somewhere in the middle. That way I can sew in both directions. So go ahead and make a knot there. Well, I found more evil ends, but I took care of them. So figure out which side you want on the front. Usually one side looks a lot better than the other one. These look about the same. Put your 2 right sides together. Now I'm going to do what's called the overcast stitch along one side of this. Just going to go over the edge through both sides, front and back of the granny square. I wish they'd change the name of these because I think it stereotypes crochet as something only old people do, but they've been called this for as long as I've been alive. Why can't they call them hippie squares or retro squares or, you know, cosmic squares? Something. Alright, now once you've overcast that edge and open it out, it looks like that. Obviously it would look better in a matching yarn, but there you have it. If you don't mind sewing, that's definitely the way to go. Now if you'd rather crochet your edges together, you can do that too. You're going to go ahead and pick up both sides. Wrap your yarn around your pinky or whatever method you normally use. And I'm going to single crochet these together. Pull up 2 loops. Single crochet. Kind of line them up evenly. pull up the next loop, single crochet, and so on across. I think this is perhaps a little more decorative than the Overcast way. It's kind of interesting figuring out which opening to go into sometimes with these. Just try to stick to the edges, don't get too far into the middle. Don't get too close to the middle or it's not going to lay right when you open it. Try to stick along that edge. Trying to get to the end without my camera shutting off. Alright, I'm almost to the corner. Don't go too far into the next row. Be a little careful here. There we go. Now when you open that out, it looks this way on one side or this way on the other. So you need to experiment to figure out which look you like better. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull the end through and finish this particular one. I'm going to do a bunch of 2x2s like that, just 2 together until I have a whole row. Now if you look at the top view, you can see the classic V. There's the V on the bottom right there, and the V on the next one right there, and that's the 2 you should be going through. Although if you have to fudge it once in a while, it's really not going to matter. It's not going to show in all of the texture anyways, but that's kind of what you're aiming at. See that? Depending on what pattern you're doing, those are sometimes hard to find if they're puff stitches and whatnot. Now I've got 2 of them together, so what I'm going to do is fold them right sides together and do the same thing along this edge. Now this piece could be quite long if you're joining like 8 of these at a time or 20 of these at a time. I've just got the 4 so you can see what I'm doing. Now I could start with a whole new piece of yarn over here, but I've got these long leftovers, which I tied that way on purpose, because now I can just start here and use up that yarn and have a few less ends to weave in. I'm going to just single crochet down this one. I'm having trouble finding the loop. There it is. There we go. And then of course when this is all done you have more ends to weave in. I know you like that part. And whenever possible, here's a little end, crochet over the ends so you don't have to sew them in later. If there's a big like gap here, don't waste your time trying to find those little holes. You can just go through that whole window, unless your directions tell you otherwise for some reason. I just made a discovery. If this part is on your front, then you want your wrong sides together when you do the next row. That way it'll be on the front too. Now if I wanted to make this into a pillow, I would take 2 of these, put them wrong sides together, and then either single crochet or overcast stitch 3 of the sides together, and the 4th side would be left open to put the pillow form into if I bought one, or if I was just going to stuff it. You know, you might not want to do that because it would come out through the holes, but you could put a liner in there and stuff it. Now if you don't like this texture, do the overcast stitch. Now in the world of crochet there are lots of ways to do things. That's just 2 methods, but I'm sure there are others. So have fun joining all your granny squares together, and I'll see you soon. Toodles!
Wherever you are, Mama, let it ride, let it ride. I'm not really sure there are any for you on the other side. I should have told you, you never know when it's your time to die. So never go faster than angels can fly.